Hey guys, welcome to episode number 16 of the CJ Show.
Awesome. I have with me Mr. Lakshman Badami. Drum roll. Thank you for the introduction, Lakshman. It was, I'm flattered by it, by the obvious things that you just said, that it is episode number 16. But what's not obvious is that I am here at B Animal, what do you call it, hostel?
It's a hostel.
Yeah, B Animal Hostel, probably the most coolest hostel I have come across. It's just my streak these days to come across cooler hostels, you know. Just get after cuckoo hostels. I'm just getting into this community of cool hostels.
Cooler.
It's just going, man. And this is one such place. I do not want to take any other time and dive right straight into the CJ Show, where we combine art and sustainability and see what comes out of it, right? So, Lakshman, why don't you introduce yourself to the community, what you do, and how are we here?
Hi guys, so my name is Lakshman. I'm an architect and environmental scientist by profession, but for the last couple of years we've been running a non-profit called Be Animal. So Be Animal is all about spreading environmental education. So our main goal is that in 10 or 15 years from now, nobody looks back and says that nobody informed me about what was going on with the planet and why didn't we do something sooner. So our job is to basically educate the whole country, tell them what's up with the environment, like spread that information. So at the moment we're running a project called Sustainability Through Permaculture, and it's going to be rolled out online and also in schools. And we fund our projects through sustainable tourism. So this hostel is one of those projects that funds our environmental initiatives. And we also have India tours. So we bring foreigners who are scared to travel in India, and they come with us, and we show them what this country is actually about. And we try to give them a good time, some internal reflection, some walking on the beach, walking through forests, enjoying themselves. So it's not more of a sightseeing tour, it's more of a internal experience. So that's why it's called Be Animal Journey.
Awesome. Sounds good. I mean, if you guys were wondering, how's he on the channel and what's his art? Well, his art is that he wants to paint the planet green. That's his art. And plus, you're an architect by profession that already requires some crazy level of designing skills, right? So, I mean, that's enough for me. Plus, I just like this guy, so he's just on the channel. Can't help it, guys. I'm sorry. I'm biased here. But anyway, so I love, one of the things, of course, I connect to you on the sustainability front. That's the reason, I get so attracted to this place, and I keep coming back whatever chance I get, right? And one of the cool things that I like is that you use a lot of art to tell the stories around about you, about the hostel, So talk to me about how you're trying to make this as a creative sort of community as well around, and sort of pushing the propaganda of whatever you're trying to establish. So how are you using art in that? Because I know you do connect with a lot of artists, and I see a jam session coming up soon and all of that. Talk to me about that aspect.
So basically, our art form is to connect with people, and I think people are the most valuable thing that we have being in this business, So I think like it's the people who come in here who are the true artists, We're just facilitating it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, of course, there's some beautiful artwork. There are plants which are like nature's best art. And we want to tell a story of simplicity, of being one with nature. And that's what we would like people to feel. And Bangalore is a big, bad city. And a lot of people feel very stressed here. And as soon as they enter this space, it's like an oasis.
Yeah.
It's like a place where they can truly be themselves, just relax, lounge around, So that's... I guess that's what we're trying to give to the world.
Awesome. That sounds good. Because I mean, like every part, I love the fact that, the hostel tries to do a 360-degree of sustainability. It's not just one aspect, You have veganism very much inbuilt in your, day-to-day.
Yeah.
There's a lot of plants around.
Reclaim furniture.
Yes, reclaim furniture. And, just the whole space is just like a green lush. And also the fact that, they're trying to put up solar panels on the top.
Yeah, that's our next project.
Yeah, and also, I bought an electric scooter, way back when I started, and, it didn't serve the purpose to me, so I ended up sort of, selling it to our man here, and that's how we got connected. And so now he's going electric as well. So, sustainability from all 360 degrees.
I mean, we do what we can, right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, like, I heard about you through Dawood, right? So he was, when we did the video, he was like, hey, there's this guy, they even want to sort of recycle soap water. And I'm like, what? Wow, that's a lot of sustainability right at once, right? So tell me, talk to me. So I haven't met any environmental science person, right? So tell me, like, what is the study all about, and what are people taught in that? Are they taught to take up practical steps in terms of preserving the environment and pushing that message forward, or like how does that whole thing go? Because like I'm sure a lot of people do not know about it.
So, like, firstly, I would like to make a distinction between environmental science and environmental engineering. So, there are two distinct fields of study. Environmental science is more research based, and environmental engineering is like solid waste management, and it goes down a different path altogether. In India, at least what I experienced at a bachelor's level, the environmental science course was not up to the mark at all. It's only taught in 2 colleges in India, and going in I expected it to be like top quality, and it was anything but. It was pretty miserable. Chemistry and the other subjects on the course were taught quite well, but somehow environmental science, it wasn't. So most of my knowledge about sustainability came once I moved to Denmark, and we had heard about this country a lot during the studies, because they're like one of the top countries when it comes to
they bicycle to
they,
work,
they cycle to work. They also use their garbage to heat all the water that's used in the country.
Garbage.
So they burn almost all of their garbage. They capture the carbon, and that's how they recycle their garbage. So they actually, there's nothing left at the end of it. They just incinerate everything. They heat up the water, and that's what provides the entire country's hot water supply. So I was intrigued about this place, and then finally I went there to study architecture. That was in 2013. And while I was there, we learned a lot about sustainable building practices, about solar technology, about wind technology, about how these things can actually be applied. And I think I learned far more there, and of course through like my own self-study than I learned in the environmental science course. Like, in the course, I felt like I was being taught things that I already knew.
Okay.
And once I went there, I was learning fresh stuff,
Yeah.
which was very, very exciting.
Makes sense. So when you're learning all of these things there, so if all of these things are happening in those countries, what do you think is the biggest challenge for people who study there and come out of it? I mean, that's great that you've come out there and you're trying to implement it here, but I'm sure there are a lot of people who've already done that. So what's stopping people to implement those practices in other countries or their home countries? What's the biggest challenge?
So my feeling is that at least like when talking about the Indian context, right, the biggest challenge is actually like it's so more than the implementation, it's sort of that foresight that's required. So the thought that you need to like look into the future and actually you need to look into the future and actually imagine how the world is going to be in 50 years and take preventative measures now. That in the long run is you save a lot just by doing that, by planning for the future and taking steps now. You save money in the long run, and that's something I feel like in India we don't really understand.
So we're not that foresighted, you mean?
Yeah.
Like we're always involved in the now and whatever.
Sure,
the
like
short term.
yes.
Like a government works in 5 years, so that's when people work in like
exactly.
years.
Like
whatever.
when you see a road that's jam-packed in India, there are 2 solutions: either widen the road or build an overpass, right? And it doesn't actually reduce traffic
these are
at
just
all.
band-aid solutions.
Exactly, and it increases traffic. The only thing that can reduce traffic is reducing the number of vehicles on the road or timing them differently so that they move more efficiently. And neither of those can be done within a system like India. So the long-term kind of solutions that would work in 40 or 50 years, they really aren't implemented. Like, did you know that Copenhagen city, they have certain areas that have been specifically designed, like these are public spaces, they're specifically designed to turn into lakes in the event of a flood.
Oh, okay.
So in the off chance that there's a flood in the city, these public spaces would fill up with water and not affect the residential area. So these are like skate parks, they're basketball courts, they're just places for people to sit around and like chill out. And they have two purposes, you know. One is the flood protection, second is a public space.
Yeah, in India, we've just built every road as a flood collecting system.
Right?
That's
Yeah,
our drainage system,
I know.
guys.
Yeah.
There's a friend of mine, okay? He stays in Kormala 4th block, okay? Right. His street, okay, for some reason, I don't know what, it looks fine, okay? But I'm sure this is the engineering behind it, right? His place, almost every rainy season gets filled up. And I mean, flooded, okay? So these guys have, you know, like the ground, like the road has gone from, you know, layers of like, you know, white topping, cement, tar, blah, blah, blah. They've increased the height of their footpaths, their cars get logged. A Scorpio gets waterlogged. Like, can you imagine the, you know, sort of, what is that, height of a Scorpio? It's very high. And it gets clogged every time. That they had to build a sort of heightened basement. And now even that's not that, you know, high, because the road's keeping. So, you know, systems like those, of course, do affect. But do you think it's, you know, it's a change that can be implemented, or are you saying that, you know, it's doomsday here in India? But I'm on the side that, you know, things can be changed and implemented, and I'll tell you a good story about that. So I was part of a conference where the Department of Transportation for London, the CTO of that, Transport for London, he's an Indian, Shashi Verma is his name. He came down, and, you know, it was a great sort of, you know, thing of discussing urban mobility in Bangalore and how city planning affects it and all of that. Right. Someone just asked that, you know, Bangalore, you know, I think we're way past the point where we can solve it and all that. And he told me, and then he told all of us that, you know, London is probably the oldest city possible, right? And they face such a problem in the, I think, late, I think after 1950, after the World War II, they suffered huge losses in terms of people, industries going back and all of that. And he told how they turned around their city. And if their city can turn around, any city can be turned around. So do you connect with that as well?
I mean, like, so in one sense, a lot of the city did get demolished during the war, and which gave new possibilities for building new subway stations. Like, they connected some tube stations, and they of course used the war damage as a possibility for a new modern city, and so did many other places in Europe. Bangalore city, on the other hand, I think it's going to be more of a water challenge than a mobility challenge in the future. Of course, like, mobility is a big mess.
It's just been announced the most congested city in the world.
And with the slowest moving traffic as well.
What is it, 2 kilometers per hour?
I think I
heard it was 5 kilometers per hour.
in the central business district, I think the speed of traffic is 16 kilometers per hour within the city center. But I'm sure on some stretches it could be like 2 or 3 kilometers per hour. But people won't cycle here, will they?
No, they still want their cars, because their idea of beating traffic and heat is sit in our own car and turn on the AC.
Right. And that does not make any sense at all, does it?
Yeah, so I mean, that's the challenge, right? For us who are working in the electric vehicle sort of, or mobility, sustainable mobility, the challenge is to get people out from individual private or privately owned cars that pollute to more shared, connected, and you know, more sustainable ways of transporting, you know. And public transportation is a big change that India definitely
and
needs.
Changing people's mindsets is also a big part of that, right?
Yeah.
Like, as long as people think that, like, cycles and buses are for the poor, we are in deep shit. And that's like a deep set mentality, you know. Like, what is considered cheap and what is considered fancy, it's all messed up over here, you know.
Again, I'm bringing that because I get reminded of that conference. So he told me that the value of social harmony of public transportation is huge. That's the reason in India no one takes the bus, because we think it's a poor man's transportation. In London, there is no such notion about London's buses. So for them, almost anyone you can see in the bus. You can find a person who's suited, booted up, very good. Find a dancer. All kinds of people travel in, and that has a very inclusive value in it. You know, and one of the companies doing this well in India and not attaching that notion of a cheap transportation is Yulu. You know, I shot a podcast with the CEO, and it was amazing how they were doing that. And I gave him this compliment. And you really see, I mean, if you've seen Yulus around, you see all kinds of people riding it, right? From a 16-year-old construction boy to a 45-year-old guy who's going to office and probably earns in lakhs. Does not matter, you know?
Because
so,
I haven't seen it before.
Absolutely. So that's a really good thing I see happening. another thing is, the part of people's mentality, yes, that's a big challenge to overcome. But the second thing is, this is an important thing to understand. Humans react to their environment, right? So the kind of environment we set governs the behavior of humans. You can put, so, for example, an Indian living in India will litter unknowingly multiple times. You put the same person in New York or London, he will be so conscious, it's not even funny. So so why is that happening? He's reacting to the environment. What that means is that, this whole this transition from petrol to electric, and for people to choose electric over petrol, it's harder. It's going to be harder if we don't recognize that it's a system behind that internal combustion engine thing with the oil and gas industry. Like transportation, this sort of system is 100-year-old system, right? So it becomes so easier for people to choose that over electric.
Right, especially when
That's
the
why-
government promotes it.
Yeah, that's why that happens. So what we need to do, and as people who are in the industry, not wait for people to wake up, but to build infrastructure that allows that makes it easier for people to fall on our side than on the other.
Absolutely.
That's the more smarter way to go about it, considering considering it's not just on preaching the fact that you have to go, but if you're building a business, which I believe in, there has to be a combination of idealism and practicality. You have to mix them together to make an impact.
Definitely.
So that's one of the things that is important to recognize for someone like you also, who is in the field of making an actual practical impact. So yeah, that's
I mean, personally, I'm a huge advocate of like our personal choices building up towards a greater change.
Yeah.
And I really don't get when people wait for their governments or their leaders to tell them like do this or do that.
yeah.
I feel like we all understand what morality is, and we're all smart, educated people, and we can like look into ourselves and look at the world around us and decide what is right and what is wrong. And those are still choices that we can make, So just because we were taught certain things in schools or in universities or by our parents, that's all conditioning, at some level. And I feel like we really need to introspect, and we need to be able to see what is right, because in 10 years when the floods come and the hurricanes come and the droughts come, there are going to be no excuses, So you really have to make the right choices now.
Yeah, true that. I mean, I have a huge hope from our generation, because we are exposed to the kind of exposure that, if you track this back 20 years back, like people in their teenagers, like 13, 14, the kind of exposure they're getting today is the kind of exposure people 20 years back got when they were like 30 years old, 40 years, when they were on their own.
Sure.
That's when they got to see so much of the world. These days, a 5-year-old kid gets that much. So there is really no excuse that, okay, you know what, we aren't, we don't know about it. And this applies to all other things, about how we think about, gender, about how we think about our women, about how we think about education. So many things we've been conditioned in a certain way, but that's not an excuse. We can relearn it. We have the tools to do it. So that's one thing that. Awesome. We have to now get into the OG segment of the show that you know about, right? And so that's, I mean, I don't know. Do you follow me on Instagram?
I hope so.
Please do. Okay, so what we do on my channel is that we put out, so I read a lot of stuff about electric vehicles and sustainable mobility, right?
Yeah.
Now I cannot sort of wait for people to learn about them as well. So for me, the whole thing is about how do I get people engaged and talking about this whole thing. So what I try to do is I read those things, we crunch it down and represent in one post format in a creative manner. So that sort of hooks people's attention, and then we can speak to them and engage in that. So that's the whole idea of it. So we put out a ton of posts. I want you to select any 2 posts from these, and then I'll take you through the creative aspects of it, and then what the post was all about. So we'll go one by one.
Let's talk about this bus.
Okay. Okay, sure. So this is a company called BYD from China. Okay, as you can see in the post, there's this bus that shrinks down and then sort of gets into the form factor of a car. So what I wanted to say from that was that, so BYD is a company that is known for its buses, okay, around the world. And in India, they have a lot of bus sort of ties with the municipal corporation, and their buses are on road. But I think around, when did I post this? September 9th. So around September, BYD came up with their electric van, which is already in China, and they launched it in India. So this was to show that okay, now they've come to India.
Is it available on the market?
It's more on. I think it's on a. This is a commercial vehicle. It's called the T3, I guess. Yeah,
Okay.
and I think it's on on the commercial side. I don't know. I don't know if they started deliveries
So
actually.
it's not a passenger vehicle.
No, this one's not. So they've launched like a commercial vehicle. As far as I know, it is a commercial vehicle.
I think Tempo Traveler should come out with an electric Tempo Traveler.
Trust me, there are a lot of people falling on the commercial EV side because they think there's more accelerated value there, because if you make an commercial electric vehicle, you tie up with a company like Amazon or a Flipkart, you're selling hundreds at once.
Sure.
So that's a route that a lot of companies are taking.
Yeah.
And yes, there are a lot of cargo vehicles that are electric that are coming out. So this was one of them. So what we wanted to show was quickly, so have that bus, shrink it down and pop into a car. So so quick shift on that. So that's how we represent that. And
Do I
we'll go to
select
the next
another
one.
post?
Yes.
Who's this guy?
That's me. So, I mean, okay, this is a post that I put out, which was about, it's basically about me, right? No, so one of the changes, I don't know if you know this, so I had two Instagram accounts about 3 to 4 months back, okay, around September. I had two accounts. One was personal, this one was purely for whatever I tell, about electric and all of that stuff. And then I realized, I really can't have two personalities at once, So I sort of let go of my personal account and then made this the only account.
Okay.
And so one of the things when I did that was started to, express myself on it as well. Not just as a post thing, because I think when you express yourself as a person behind it, people relate to it more, and I've seen that.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I did here, this post was, this is very recent. So somebody asked me, so being in the field that I am, electric vehicles, people may assume that I am a auto enthusiast or I'm into cars, into bikes that much. Yes, to an extent, mostly electric, right? But I am more into transportation and what it means to what it means to humans, what the kind of impact it's going to have going forward and the change it's going through. So and vehicles are a small part of it. They are a part of it, but vehicles are a very small part of it. Transportation and mobility are such big things, and when if you ask me, are you a car enthusiast or an auto enthusiast, I reply no, I'm like a transportation maniac. There's no word for it, so I just came up with it.
Sure.
So this was a post about that I'm into transportation and all of that. And somebody asked me on, so you can see this is basically an Instagram chat that somebody asked me on in the DMs, and then I replied that to them.
Okay.
So yeah. And this is a photo that I just took, I think, when I was shooting episode 3 of this show.
Where was it taken?
This was on the terrace of my friend's home.
Cool.
So you mix and match stuff like that,
looks
and
pretty
I was anyway holding my hands like this. And like, okay, it'll be fun if I can just insert that thing there. So you come up with creative ways to do it.
Very nice.
So yeah, I clearly resonated with a lot of people, and yeah, that was the post, and that's what we try to do on the channel, man. Make it as fun and engaging as possible, because I know I care a lot about electric vehicles and sustainable mobility, but it's my duty to get a lot of people involved in it. And I think art is one of the best ways to do it, because it helps propagate the message. What science can't do, art can do. It reaches places far and beyond.
But they haven't seen. Are they going to see this picture?
I'm gonna edit it out,
Yeah?
so
Okay.
it's always up there.
Nice.
So they'll definitely see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So it's been doing all of this stuff. What was the core motivation? When did you realize that why did you choose environmental science very consciously when you were sort of choosing your courses? Because that's really not the most popular bachelor's choice, to be honest, in our country, right? So when you chose it, were you aware that this is where I want to be, what I want to be doing, and why I want to dedicate my life? So I want to understand what's the core motivation behind you getting into the whole thing of sustainability.
So my main thing is to build better cities. So in the future, when I look at a city, I see like possibilities. And I see so many things that could be easily fixed if we just cared enough, you know, from solid waste management to water management to just energy to the way people interact, how we relax, how we spend our lives, that kind of thing. So I wanted to build better cities for everyone. And I wanted to build them in a combination of great architecture, great urban planning, and solid environmental science, and pull those together. So my plan was to either go for architecture or to get into environmental science. I picked environmental science because it was the most logical option at that time. I later went to study architecture, and the two combined is like very, very powerful for me and for my life's work. So that's why I chose it.
So like when you were sort of in your 12th standard, so I mean like when did it hit you? Because like I mean like if you've planned it so early on, that's great, by the way. In 11th and 12th that you could see that. So what was the inspiration, and like just how did you come to this conclusion that okay, you know what, I want to build great cities, man? Like how did you come to that?
Actually, I've wanted to do this since I was 6 or 7 years old. So right from the time I was a child, I knew I wanted to be in design. I wanted to, I would want to work on like big projects, you know, change the way the world functions. Not so much motivated by money, but more like of just the possibilities for humanity, you know, that kind of thing. And then like I moved out of my house when I was 15 years old. I had some time to reflect and think about my life, and it's sort of been like a constant stream from there, you know. Never really looked back, making choices that are maybe like unpopular in our society. I've made a lot of them. I feel like it's the right thing to do, you know, like at least you can live with yourself at the end of the day. Like you are living with your ethics and you stand by it, and that's the most important thing.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I love the fact that you mentioned choices, because you know, even I, like the first decision I took for myself, I don't remember myself before 10th standard. I really don't. It was just like on auto mode, man. Really, it was on autopilot. But after 10th, you know, I started making a lot of conscious choices, and I you know, sort of understood the power of free will, that you really can do whatever you want, really. And second is choices. How I sort of got attracted to the fact that, oh wait, I can make a choice for myself, and then it impacts me in a good way. What? Wait. So for the first choice, I think first major life decision I took after my 10th standard was I joined martial arts, and it has reaped the greatest benefits I could ever come across, you know. So for me, that was the start. Then I got addicted to the process of, you know, just, you know, taking the reins of your life in your own hands, and, you know, taking accountability for it, and just, you know, charting your way forward. So even I fell in love with that process. So I connect to the fact that you just said, you know, reflect and, you know, make your own choices. And, you know, I think Jeff Bezos made this statement like your choices, our choices make us, you know. We make our choices and our choices make us, which makes sense. Like,
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And like I like what you said about being in auto mode. And I think like at least Indian society, our families are like education system. It's all structured, you know. There's a path through everything, and there's a fixed answer for everything. But life is not like that, you know. And even if you have the smallest shred of a regret, you know, in your later life, you're the only person accountable, you know. You can't blame your parents for your shitty decisions when you're 50 years old. They won't even be around, you know, most probably. So at the end of the day, you have to be accountable for where you've gone and what you're doing in your life, you know, how you choose to eat, how you choose to live, where you decide to go, who you marry. These are all decisions that we make, you know. And I know that it does not seem like that for a lot of people, and it does not seem like reality works this way, but trust me, it does, you know. And if there's any takeaway from this session, I would like people to know that like you're in control, you know. You can make it what you want.
Yeah, I mean that's so true, man. Because you're true. Like the Indian sort of family, and this is not from hate for the system. Like I love some aspects of it. You know, I love the fact that we have tight knitted communities, and we don't suffer that much through depression that a lot of people from in Western countries do. It's a different topic, mental health. But you know, the fact that it's now intruded, like parents think that their children are incapable of making decisions to a great extent. Like till you're 25 years old, people are like, oh, you know, no, do what we're saying. Even marry by their choices, you know, so all of that. So I think that's one thing that I like about the Western culture, that you're out at 16 or 18 make a decision for yourself, you know.
But like respect for your families has nothing to do with
Yeah,
this,
yeah,
you
it
know,
is.
like,
Yeah, that's
it's
one thing I'm trying
completely
to.
separate.
It's not like you have to choose respecting your family over you know, living your own life. It can be done.
Yes.
Both of them can be done together. It doesn't have to be a choice.
Right.
Uh,
And you can practice a religion to appease your family. You can do things that they want you to do. You can be an active member of society and still have a very clear worldview.
Sure.
Like it's just a game, you know. So you can play it in whichever way you want.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to go renegade or like be like I'm completely out of the system.
Yeah.
End up living on a mountain. Like that's not for everyone, you know.
Yeah, I mean, like the biggest thing in that, if you want to be the biggest rebel, the way you can be the biggest rebel is by living life on your own terms, and it does not life, okay, not like, oh, this year I'm gonna, you know, just bars through my family, and then 2 years later back with the family and same issues. No. Live a
guys,
life
be
on
nice
your
to
own
your
terms.
families.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
be nice
that's
to them.
it's very important, man.
Yeah,
It's very
sure.
important. Like the value of the core group around you.
Absolutely.
You know,
So important.
I don't know, ma'am. I'm just bringing things from everywhere. So I was just seeing this. Have you heard of the movie Shubh Mangal Zada Savdhan from Ayushmann Khurrana?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so it's a movie about you know, homosexuality. Okay, and it's I think it's the first time it's being shown in such a way, and Ayushmann does a great job at it. There's this one dialogue there in which the dad, the father of the person Ayushmann loves, which is Guy, of course, and he says, so he tries to convince him throughout the movie, and he says that, you know, so the dad says, okay, you've convinced us, but what about the world? And Ayushmann just turns behind and says, you are the world. That hit deep to me. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
So it's releasing on 21st. They
it's
didn't pay us. They didn't pay me at all. Trust me, I just liked it. So it's coming on 21st Feb, and I'm definitely, after that, I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna watch this movie.
Yeah.
It's too good. But anyway, we've gone far off places. So guys, this was a completely different way in which this episode, in which we've done this show, episode 16, something very new, very fresh, with my man Lakshman Badami here. If you wanna chill out in a very chill place, if you're trying to enter veganism, any sort of that, I will link all of his handles in the description. Check them out, and you know, that's all from us here. Thank you so much for being a part
Thanks
of this
for having
video.
me, Chirag.
Yes, and
See you guys here.
yeah. See you guys, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
Bye-bye.
Bye.